Okay. Well, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us here today. I think people will still kind of be filtering in and out, but we will get started and respect your time. My name is Deb Gilster. You can't see me right now, but I am from Blackhawk Technical College, and I am the Access and Accommodations Coordinator at Blackhawk Technical College in Janesville, Wisconsin.
And I'm Chris Bowers. I'm the Disability Services Specialist. So Deb and I essentially do the same thing, just different names. Every campus kind of has a different name for their person. And I'm at Southwest Tech in Fenimore, Wisconsin.
So we just want to thank you for taking the time to come here today to join with us. Hopefully we'll be able to answer some of the questions that you might have about transitioning from high school to secondary school. We're going to try to answer some questions. We're going to try to go through some general information, but please feel free to put any questions that you might have in the chat. We're going to be monitoring the chat, so we want to make sure that we get questions answered that you have. So while we have a lot of information that we can provide to you, we want to make sure that this is also interactive and we're able to answer any questions that you may have. I know this is also being recorded, so people might be watching this at a later date. So that's why we'll be giving some general information and stuff too. So, all right, we'll go ahead and get started. So my biggest question when I meet with a lot of transition schools and go to a lot of transition high schools and do presentations. And my biggest question that I ask typically when we're in a big interactive setting and students can actually talk with me is the question I ask is, are you ready to graduate? You know I have some students on here. By a raise of hand, let me see those students. Are you guys ready to graduate? You know, you guys okay? I could see a couple hands. So yeah, so that graduation is kind of floating. So even if you're a sophomore or a junior, you need to begin thinking about what does that graduation look like. If you're already a senior, you got a few weeks. So hopefully you've already begun some of this. But when we think about graduation, we think about what's after graduation, and we think about what kind of job do you want. So are you want to be a vet tech? Do you want to go into diesel? Do you want to be a teacher? Do you want to be, there's a lot of different things that you can be. You think of it, you name it, you can probably be it. So the biggest thing is once you know what you want to be, you have to figure out how to train for it. So that's one thing is, and we talk about career planning, is that once you figure out kind of what you want to do, you need to figure out how you're going to train for that job, how you're going to get that job, and how you're going to keep that job. So, many of you have probably worked with your case managers or your high school counselors to talk about that career planning and all of those different things. So that's really important as you begin that career planning process, is to think about the long-term goal of what is that job and how are you going to train for that job. So that's kind of why Chris and I are here. We're going to talk about, both Chris and I work for what we call a technical college. But there are many, many different options and different ways to train for a job. You can train for, you can just go to work at, any, Walmart or Fleet Farm or the grocery store. Many of those jobs don't require any training at all. And then there's jobs that, where you can work with a mentor and they might be able to give you some on the job training. Then, there's a 2-year community college, there's a career and technical college, there's 4-year degrees, there's master's degrees, there's many, many different types of education or non-education that you can use in order to get the job that you want. What I want to talk about here is post-secondary options. So like I said, Chris and I work for a technical college. Do you know the difference between a technical college and a community college? I think Southwest Tech does a lot of community college stuff too. But the difference really between them is technical colleges are a lot more focused on those technical programs, the hands-on programs, auto, diesel, a lot of human services stuff like, drug programs, those type of things, or health sciences, from nursing to radiography. Those degrees that usually take 2 to 3 years, and you end up with a technical diploma or an Associates of Arts diploma. 2-year community colleges, a lot of those are colleges that are going to be focused on liberal arts or general education. You're going to have a lot more options for music and drama and history and different types of classes that aren't necessarily tied to a certain type of career. They're more what we call gen eds, and they're linked to being able to take those. So you can go to a 2-year college, like I said, Southwest Tech is a 2-year college that you can get a lot of gen eds at, or UW Whitewater or UW Platteville. Some of them have like the offshoots where they have 2-year community colleges, and you can get a lot of your classes at a lower rate at those colleges to get your gen eds done. And then those gen eds will transfer to a 4-year university. So that's why it's important to understand what type of job you want, so you know kind of what type of school you want to go to. If you know you want to be a diesel mechanic, going to a 4-year university is not going to be the right option for you. Or taking a bunch of history and music classes, again, probably not something you need. But if you know you want to be a teacher, or you want to go on to some sort of career where you will need, a scientist, or a librarian, or any of those type of degrees where you would need a 4-year bachelor's degree, then you might not want to go to a tech school, because you're going to be taking a lot of classes that are not necessarily what you need in order to get you to your goal. So that's what we talk about when we talk about career planning and understanding your second post-secondary options. So another question I ask my students is, should I go to college? Do you want to go, or do you think you should go? This is a huge question for students to think about as they begin planning. Is a lot of students think that they have to go to college in order to get a job, or they have to go to college because their parents are telling them they have to go to college, which is not true. You need to understand whether you want to go, because college is a lot of money, and college is a lot of work. So unless you really want to go, unless you're really interested in a career where you need to go to college, you might want to explore other options that aren't linked to college, because college is expensive and a lot of work, and it's really important, and it'll get you a really good job in the future. But again, it doesn't come easy, and it's a lot of work. And we're going to talk a little bit about the differences between college and high school, so you can have a better understanding of what the differences are, and whether or not you really want to go to college. And then if you do decide you want to go to college, how we can make sure that you are successful and have the resources that you need. So are there any, if, like I said, if there's any questions on anything that I talk about, I know I'm talking pretty fast, feel free to shoot your questions into the chat, and we'll be able to answer them as we go.
All right, so I'm here to give you some advice. Let's say that you have decided that you really want to go to college, and you've picked a job where you know you need to go to college in order to do that job. So what is some advice for you as you move through high school, whether you be a sophomore, a junior, a senior? One of the things that I like to tell students is to really look at your IEP, look at the accommodations that you have in your IEP, and start kind of backing off probably towards the end of your junior year, maybe into your senior year. Start looking at backing off some of those accommodations that aren't allowed at the college level. And we'll talk about those a little bit later, what's allowed at the college level and what typically is not allowed at the college level. I'm not going to hit all of these because you can read them, but also, work on your study skills, work on your time management, learn how to better study for tests, learn how to block out your homework that you need to get done so that you're getting a little done at a time. Work on some of those procrastination habits that you might have. Brush up on your basic skills. Let's say that you're really strong in English, but maybe math is a little bit harder for you. And I'm not sure if you're all aware, but you don't have to take 4 years of math to graduate from high school. But if math is a subject that's hard for you, I would definitely recommend go ahead and take those 4 years anyway. I often have students that come to Southwest Tech starting there, and they have a math class for one of their classes that's required. And they say, well, I don't really like math, so I didn't take it my senior year. So they've gone over a year without math, and now all of a sudden they're having to take it at the technical college. You know, don't go a year without taking math if math is something that's hard for you. Try to find something, a math class at your college that maybe, or excuse me, at your high school that can help you brush up on those skills. Same goes for English. You know, you need those 4 years, but really take advantage of those English classes to brush up on some of those skills that you might need. Self-advocacy at the high school level. I used to be a high school special education teacher. At the high school level, a lot of times your special education teacher will go to your regular ed teacher and say, hey, so-and-so needs their test read to them. I'm going to take them on this date and read that to them. You know, I would encourage you to start taking care of some of those things, because at the college level, you're going to have to take care of some of those things. And I'm sure that your high school teachers, because I know a lot of the high school teachers out there are helping you to work towards some of those self-advocacy skills already. So embrace that and start doing those communications yourself. Another big one that I see is, you know, you guys are probably all used to Chromebooks, right? How many of you, can you raise your hand if you have a Chromebook that you're on right now? Yeah, so I see some hands going up. Chromebooks don't typically work at the college level. Our college recently went to a 1-to-1, meaning that all of our students are provided with a computer. It's part of your student fees, but it's not a Chromebook. It's actually an HP laptop. And so that's a little bit different. I used to be a Mac person. I always had a Mac computer. And when I got my HP, I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to use this. So, you know, once you get your computer, play with it before the first day of classes, learn how to use it, so that when you're transitioning to college and learning all those other new things, you're not also having to learn how to use your computer. Learn how to use Microsoft products. You know, at the college level, typically Google products aren't used, like your Google Docs, your Google Slides. We use Microsoft Word, we use Microsoft PowerPoint. And that's because we talk to our employers and we ask them, what do students need to know how to use in order to get a job with you? And they overwhelmingly are telling us they need to use these certain software programs. I also recommend students get your accommodations in place before you graduate from high school. I have teenagers. I know that the summer is for fun, right? None of you want to be thinking about school on the summer. You want to just be enjoying your summers, especially your summer after your senior year. You want to hang out with your friends before you guys all leave for college. You know, get those accommodations in place before you leave high school so you don't have to worry about them over the summer and you don't have to try and get them in place in the fall. Often have students tell me, well, I want to try it without. I want to start the school year and I want to try it without any of my accommodations. That's fine. Just because your accommodations are in place doesn't mean that you need to use them. So question, maybe some of you are wondering, well, what is she talking about accommodations? Accommodations, I'm talking about things like having your tests read, going to a quiet place for testing, having access to audiobooks, things like that. You know, things that supports that you're getting in high school right now, you know, get those in place. We can't make you use them when you come to the college level, but have them in place in case you need them. Next slide, Deb. So what is different between college and high school? There's a lot of stuff that's different. So I'm going to kind of give you a few here, just kind of brush over a few. My daughter, she's completing her freshman year of college this year. And one of the things that she commented is that it seems like you have a lot more free time. And I use that word loosely because you'll notice you don't have a schedule that's 8 to 3:30 or whatever your schedule is now, Monday through Friday. With her, she only had one class on Tuesday and Thursday mornings, and the rest of the day was hers. It was free, but it's not really free because if you look at that third arrow there, extensive independent study and assignments, you have a lot more outside of class work that you need to manage. So just because you don't have a class doesn't mean that that's free time. It's time where you need to be devoting to completing your assignments and studying for your tests and things like that. You know, I often have students that say, well, look at all this free time I have. I can get a job too. And I'm not saying you can't get a job as well, but I just don't want people to look at their schedules and see that's free time. So that also talks about, to the increased workload you see in that second column. The other thing that she mentioned to me about a month ago, she got super sick and had to miss a week of classes. She said, Mom, like missing a week of classes in college is like missing a month in high school. Like the classes go so much faster. And so, you want to make sure you're attending classes and you're not being forced to attend them, but you want to make sure that you are attending them, because missing just a little bit of class really puts you behind because those classes move so much faster. The other thing too is, while we love that you work really hard in our classes and put in your best effort, you are graded on mastering that content, not necessarily on your effort. So our welding instructors need to know that you can do all of those welds that are required. They love that you work hard, but in the end, they're grading you on the fact that you can do the things that you need to do. And then the last one on this slide I wanted to talk about was IEPs. I often will have students or hear instructors will come to me and say, well, this student says that they have an IEP and I need to follow their IEP. We don't have IEPs in college. Your IEP doesn't transfer to college. We love to see your IEPs because we love to see what kind of supports you have in high school. And then we like to meet with you and talk about how we can support you as well. But you have what's called accommodation plans. And then, like I said, we'll talk about later what are some things that are allowed on those accommodation plans and what are some things that we're not necessarily able to do. So next slide, Deb. The next thing too, one thing that is a little different is, right now, if you need to talk to one of your teachers or you need to talk to one of your special ed teacher, they're pretty much there for you all day long when school's in session. Instructors at the college level have what's called office hours, and that's that second point there. And I know that sometimes can be confusing to students when they come. They're like, what are they talking about with these office hours? They have designated times that they're available for you to come get help with them. And I'm not saying that if you contact them and say, I can't meet with you during your office hours, could you meet at this time instead, that they wouldn't be willing to do that. But I know students are often confused by what are these office hours? So let's say that you're in a written communication class and you look at the syllabus that tells what's going on for that class. They might say, we have office hours on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 2 to 4. That's what time that you can go into their office. And right now it's Zoom hours where you can connect to their Zoom class and get help from that instructor. So point number 3, they may have less contact with you. Depending on the program you're in and what that instructor is, you might only see him a couple times a week. Now, if you're in welding, it's your welding instructor, you're probably going to see him every day. Your written comm instructor, though, you might only see 1 or 2 times a week, unless you make that contact and reach out. Teacher to student ratio, at the technical colleges, those ratios are probably a little bit smaller. But if you go to a 4-year college, some of the bigger 4-year colleges, you might go into a lecture hall and have 300 students in your classroom. So in that case, you're going to have to reach out to that instructor if there's something that you need help with. But I'm sure Deb would agree, most of our class size ratios are a lot smaller. That's some of the benefits of coming to a community college or a technical college. And then that last point on there, the motivation comes from you. It comes from your desire to be successful. It comes from you picking a program that's really interesting and that you're excited about. And so I would encourage you to put a lot of thought into, what program it is that you want to go into and make sure it is something that you're excited about. All right, next slide. Monitoring your own progress. If you're not already in the habit, I would encourage you to get in the habit of really making sure you're checking your grades often and you're checking for missing assignments and things like that, because that's going to be something that you need to do at the college level. There's not going to be other people that are checking your progress necessarily. So you're going to want to make sure that you're checking and making sure that you're where you want to be with your grades. I already talked kind of about the free time, how it can be free time sometimes, but you also have to make sure you've got a plan for getting your work done. And then I've already kind of touched on the advocacy. on this slide. So next slide. So Deb and I both work in disability or accommodation services. So what do we do? So we work with anyone who comes to our campus who has a documented disability. That could be a learning disability. It could be ADHD. It could be something mental health related like anxiety or depression. You know, if you had an IEP in high school, most likely you're going to qualify to work with us. Okay. So what do we do then? So we work with you, we meet with you and find out, well, where are those barriers that you're having to learning? Maybe you have a learning disability in reading, so you need audiobooks or you need your tests read. Maybe you have ADD, so it's a little bit more difficult for you to focus and you need a quiet place to take a test. Things like that. We help you to come up with those ways of removing those barriers that result as your disability. We also help you navigate that transition to college. So because I'm a little bit smaller school, I have the luxury that when you guys come to Southwest Tech, I can offer to meet with you regularly when you first come here until you feel like you've got the hang of college. And I see Deb shaking her head, so she must do that as well. I have some students that want to meet with me for the first couple months just until they feel like they've got the swing of college. And then I have some students that meet with me the whole time that they're at Southwest Tech until they graduate, just to check in and make sure things are going well. I have one student who's graduating in May. He checks in with me every day that he's on campus just to say hello and I'm here. And that's awesome. Love that. So, but one thing about both Deb and I, our services aren't mandated. We can't make you interact with us. You get to pick when and if you use your accommodations. You get to pick how much interaction you have with us. If you want to come see us every day, great. If we get your accommodations in place and you've got it and you're on your own, that's fine too. But you kind of get to pick how much interaction you have with us. All right, next slide. Some other smaller differences. You know, we can't tell your instructors what your disability is. We never disclose that to them. You can tell them if you choose to tell them, but that is not something that we share with your instructors. All of that is kept very confidential in our offices. So if you're someone who doesn't want your instructors to know that, just know that we won't share that. Caseload size too is a little different. Your special ed teachers now maybe have, I don't know, 14 to 20 students on their caseloads that they're working with. Deb and I typically have over 100. So you can see why some of that communication kind of falls back on you. If you're struggling, you need to just let us know. We're happy to help you, but you can tell with over 100 students, you know, that communication kind of falls back on you to let us know. I also, a lot of times I'll have students say, well, you know, I had a special ed study hall when I was in high school. I was able to go to the special education room and work in a small group to get some extra help. And we don't have special ed study halls on campus, but we do have tutoring services. And I think most colleges you go to will have tutoring services. And that's free to all students, whether you're registered with disability services or accommodation services or not, you know, and that's something that oftentimes will help students get set up with. So back to kind of that, I'm really good at English, but I'm not so comfortable with math. Then what I do with students is I say, well, let's get you set up with a math tutor and let's get it set up now before the semester starts versus later when maybe you're struggling. So I would really, if there's certain subject areas that you're a little nervous about, I would definitely have you reach out to tutoring services on campus. The other one too is the time management. You know, that's something too that you're going to be a little bit more on your own with. You know, right now you might have a special ed teacher or one of your regular ed teachers that's kind of keeping you going with time management. And when it comes to college, you have to learn to manage that time on your own. You know, we'll help you do things like set up block schedules where I have class during this time, but this time I'm going to work on this class's homework and this time I'm going to work on this class's homework. You know, we'll help you set those things up, but in the end, you kind of are in charge of monitoring your own time. All right, next slide. So I've already talked about you get to choose if and when you use your accommodations. Let's say that you have testing accommodations. You're super comfortable with your agriculture classes, but boy, when it comes to that math class, you want that extended time. So you can pick and choose. I want to use my testing accommodations for this class, but not for this class. Or I want to use my testing accommodations for this test, but not for that test. Okay. You initiate that contact with your instructors. You do have to tell your instructors when you want to use your accommodations. And so that's a conversation that you need to initiate. If that's something that you're nervous about, though, the first few times, more than happy to help you with that. And this last one is one that all the students kind of chuckle about and get excited about. You get to choose your mom and dad's involvement. Okay. So Deb and I can't legally talk to your parents unless you give us permission. We have this form called a FERPA form. You can sign the FERPA form saying we can talk to your parents. And then maybe you think, well, they're talking to my parents a little too much. You can pull that form back at any time and say, nope, that's it. I don't want you to talk to my parents anymore. And I'm sure Deb probably functions the same way I do. I don't typically initiate contact with your parents. If I need to talk with you about a concern, I reach out to you. I don't reach out to your parents. Now, that doesn't mean that mom and dad might not call me if you have a FERPA release on file and say, hey, I'm worried about Johnny. Like, can you tell me kind of what's going on? So yeah, that's one that the students, especially when the parents are in the meeting and I say, oh, you get to choose how much I get to talk to your mom and dad. They always smile at that one. All right, next slide.
All right. Chris went over a ton of information. I'm not seeing any questions in the chat yet, so you must be getting some of your questions already answered. Yeah, I just have to agree with Chris on the parent involvement thing. I never call a parent if you're not attending class or your grades are bad. I don't even check your grades. So I won't even know that you're failing a class unless you come and tell me or unless I get a flag from an advisor. But otherwise, if your parents do call me, unless I have that FERPA release, I can't even acknowledge that you're working with us or that you're a student with us. If I do have the release, I will typically answer a few of your parents' questions, but then I will most likely want to bring in a meeting or bring you as the student into the meeting as well. I don't get into a whole lot of detail with parents because it's just, really it's about making sure that you're the person accountable and that you're the person that's advocating for yourself. And again, the parents aren't allowed to contact, at least at BTC, they're not allowed to contact the faculty. They might contact the faculty, but usually when that happens, the faculty will contact us and Disability Services, and then we will reach out to the parent and return the phone calls. A lot of times our faculty won't interact with parents, just again, because they don't want to give out too much information, and they just it really becomes about that self-advocacy piece. And, and Chris and I are here to help you. We will do whatever we can to help you learn about it, help you reach out to instructors, help you have those difficult conversations. But again, we don't know you need that unless you let us know. So really, whether it's Chris or I or wherever you end up going to school, making that connection with whoever your disability services staff are. Chris and I are both small colleges, so BTC and Southwest Tech only have one of us here. But, if you go to Madison or, Whitewater, there might be 10 or 15 disability services staff member, but you'll be assigned to a specific staff member and you'll be able to work with that one and get to know them. So that's really important. So this brings us to the requesting accommodations. We already talked about, it's going to be different depending on what school you go to, but it's pretty much the same type of process. You need to let us know that you want accommodations. Either, at BTC, it's just you send us an email or, give me a call and say, hey, I want accommodations. With Southwest Tech, they actually have an accommodation request form. I know a lot of the bigger colleges do too. You just fill out a form that says, basically requesting a meeting. And then you need to submit documentation. 504 plan sometimes is enough documentation. IEP typically is enough information, but some of the bigger colleges might want, depending on what your disability is, they might want, access to, a mental health record or something like that, just so they have a better idea of what your disability is and then how we can help you remove those barriers. So after we've reviewed your documentation, we will set up a meeting to meet with you to do, remember what we call that accommodation plan. And that accommodation plan, it's not an IEP. It's basically a plan that's agreed between you and I and, you know, the staff member to determine what is going to be appropriate to help you remove some of the barriers that you might face when you come to college. It's not about making sure that you are totally successful all the time, but it's about making sure that those barriers are removed so that you can have better access. Um, After we develop that plan, each school is going to have a different process to how they, you know, notify faculty. Sometimes the disability services staff will notify the faculty of your accommodations. At some schools, you'll have like a piece of paper that you deliver to the faculty to let them know what your accommodations are. But you know, that's, you know, your faculty will be notified what your accommodations are. And again, like Chris mentioned, they don't know what your disability is. Only you can tell them what your disability is. They will be informed of what your plan is, but they will not be informed what your disability is. So it's really important that the disability staff and your faculty members work to make the arrangements that you need. So it's really that interactive process between you and the disability staff and your faculty to make sure that you have what is needed for your classes. All right. Some, you know, you always have, what are the commonly recommended accommodations? So, you know, each student is different. If I have 3 students with a learning disability, their accommodations might be different. 3 students with ADHD, their accommodations might be totally different. What our goal is to find out what are barriers for you, what are things that you struggle with, and then putting accommodations that are appropriate for you. A lot of times those will include, you know, extended time for exams or alternate format of texts, or, you know, the computer might read tests to you or might read your books to you. Reduced distraction testing, that's a big one for a lot of students. They just need a quiet place to take their test because the classroom is so distracting for them. So that's a pretty common one. Note takers, if you really struggle with note taking, we have different note taking assistants and different things that we can do. Interpreters, use of a calculator is a very, very rare accommodation. It can be used, but it's not typical. So even though you might have a calculator on your IEP, it most likely will not be something that we approve when you come to the post-secondary school. So so don't get too used to using that calculator on your exams, because you may or may not be able to use that once you come to the post-secondary school.
All right, so remember when I was talking earlier, I talked about that there are some accommodations that we see quite often on IEPs in high school that typically are not allowed at the college level. So we can't, as disability services or accommodation specialists, we can't approve anything that modifies the program or reduces the standards of the program. So you still have to meet all the same requirements that every other student has to meet that's in that program. So what are some examples of that? So like I said, I used to teach high school special education. So I know, you know, sometimes students can get on multiple choice tests. Maybe your special education teacher might cross off 1 or 2 of the 4 choices. That's not something that we can do at the college level. We can provide for those tests to be read if that's something that would remove a barrier for you. We could have you do it in a reduced distraction testing area. Maybe sometimes there can be I just lost my train, extended time on that test, if that would help. The other thing too is shortened assignments. So if in your written communication class, the request is to write from your instructor is to write a 5-page paper, we can't say, well, the student only has to ever write 3 pages. So we can't cut back assignments at all. Altered grading scales, you know, if your course is 94% is an A, 88% is a B, et cetera, we can't change that to a 90, 80, 70, 60 grading scale. Teaching assistants, we don't have teaching assistants at the college level. No one from disability services will go into your classes with you. Modifications in attendance and deadlines, that happens from time to time, but it's very rare. I would say that of the over 100 students that I'm working with right now, I only have 2 students who get extensions on assignments. And that is because they both have medical conditions that are unpredictable. And so when they have an episode of their medical condition, they might get a day or 2 extra. So being able to have unlimited time to do your assignments or getting extra 2 weeks or whatnot typically doesn't happen at the college level. Test retakes and assignment redos, that typically is also not something. I will say that sometimes your instructors will allow that, but they allow it for all students, that it's not just a disability specific thing. But once again, doesn't happen very often.
Yeah, I'll reiterate with Chris is the big thing is that we really can't do anything different than what the rest of the class is doing. If the rest of the class gets retakes, then you'll get retakes. If the rest of the class is allowed to use their books for the class, you can use your books. If the rest of the class gets to have notes on there or a note card, then you will get to as well. Those types of things. So really, it's more about the reducing the barriers and not necessarily making things easier for you. My big thing, I love assistive technology, so I'm not sure how familiar you are with assistive technology, but if anybody has a smartphone, which I think you probably do, a smartphone is a piece of technology. You can use that smartphone for doing just about whatever you need to do. You can have your books read to you. You can log into your classes. You can do just about everything that you want to do on that phone. So that's one piece of assistive technology that we think of. Dragon Naturally Speaking is another software that some of our students use who struggle with the ability to type or struggle with organization of their thoughts. If you ever use your smartphone and you do voice dictation, when you push the little speaker button and you talk into your phone and then it sends a weird message to your friends. Dragon Naturally Speaking is something like that, and that's on your computer. So those that rather than having to type a 5-page paper, they could actually just talk to the computer and it will pretty much write out what they're saying to the computer. Computers are used all the time. I know we talk about how Google is not necessarily the best way to do, but Google is still amazing. You can still do a lot of stuff with Google and with Google Apps, and you can use things to help with planning, like my homework planner, or you can set up reminders, or you can schedule your day. So really important how Chris told you to, get to know your computer and play with it and understand it. I highly recommend that you begin to explore some of these different technologies. Read Speaker is a really good thing that actually reads what's on a web page or reads what's in a document to you. So for those of you that struggle with reading, Read Speaker is a really good program that's going to help you with those types of things. But it's really hard if you come to school and you come to college and all of a sudden you're in 2 or 3 classes and you're learning all this content, and now you need to figure out the technology and you need to figure out email and you need to figure out what a syllabus is, and you have to track, dates and due dates and all of that. So really beginning to explore over the summer, not only your computer, but what are some different ways that you're going to figure out how to manage your time and how to manage your day and how to remember when assignments are due, and how to take notes, and begin to think about that and even explore that in high school if you're still a sophomore or a junior. Really ask your teachers and ask your case managers, because I know there's a lot of technology at the high schools, and sometimes case managers are a little bit afraid of it because they've never used it. So it might not be something that's always explored, but if you have some needs and you think technology can help you, begin exploring some of that. Start Googling some of that. And, that's something that's really important to learn how to do, because if you know how to do it and you know how to use it before you get to college, it's really going to help you be more successful. So Chris, anything to add on that?
Oh, that's good.
All right. Well, that's pretty much all of the basic information that Chris and I have just to throw at you. So hopefully that's enough information to at least get you started and to at least get you thinking about making that transition. So we do still have, 15 minutes or so. Is there any questions that you have, or, related to what we were talking about, or even, just related to transitioning? Feel free to either unmute yourself and ask, or if if you want to put it in the chat, we're more than willing to answer any questions for you if you have any.
Or if anyone wants to share what their career plans are at this point, or what they think they want to do after high school, that would be great to hear as well.
Christina, I think that's a great idea to get the kids interacted here. So maybe they can all go around and talk about what their plan is, or if they have a plan yet.
Would love that. Anybody want to volunteer to be first? Otherwise, we're just going to pick on somebody.
Olivia.
She's the first on my screen too.
I'm going to Southwest Tech for animal science next year.
That's great, Olivia. Have we connected?
Yes, we have.
Awesome. I know I've had lots of students coming and going. Have you come to campus?
Yes, I have.
Okay. I thought so. Great.
All right, I have Asa next on my screen. Asa, do you want to unmute
Josie.
and share?
So I'm just helping somebody else, like a friend of mine, I think. Working. I'm helping to get ready for the pet store. Or something else that can remember that. But maybe you can ask to my parents if you're okay with that or no.
Okay. Yep.
So Asa, your dad works at Southwest Tech, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Thanks for sharing. I have Jocelyn. Jocelyn, next on my list.
Yeah.
That's her name. That's her name.
I'm planning on going to Southwest Tech in this summer and get my CNA.
Nice. Jocelyn, the CNA program moves really fast. So definitely, and I'm not saying that in a negative way. It moves at a good pace. It's just that connect with me. If you need accommodations or you think you might need accommodations, please connect with me really early. Okay?
Okay.
Before the class starts.
Yep, that's one thing that we didn't really mention, is that accommodations are not retroactive. So you can't, start a class and then 2 or 3 weeks into it say, oh, shoot, I should have checked with accommodations. Can I go back and make up the stuff that I missed? No, you can't. You can definitely have accommodations moving forward, which is helpful for those students that are in longer classes or longer programs. But we can't go back and make accommodations. So it's better to get them set up ahead of time so that you can have them if you need them, rather than trying to scramble and get everything you need done once you're already in a class and not doing very well. So yeah, thanks for sharing, Jocelyn. I have Rebecca next.
I'm going to Southwest Tech for animal science this coming year.
And Rebecca, I've met you as well, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds like animal science is a big one for you guys. I don't have any pictures. I don't know who else is a student, but if there's any other students that want to share.
I'm curious with Keegan. He's got that John Deere
I know.
symbol. Keegan, are you interested in something with agriculture or egg power?
Egg mechanics.
Egg mechanics? I had a student come to me the other day who said that he's hoping he'll never have to work on a green tractor. He only wants to work on red ones. I said, I don't think it's going to work that way, but
Yeah. I don't think you get to pick and choose. So, okay, Loriana, do you want to share?
I don't know. I want to go to
Grade are you
South-
in, Loriana?
I want to go to Southwest Tech for graphics or culinary.
Okay,
Okay.
couple different options.
Unfortunately, we, after this year, this is our last year of culinary. We have an amazing graphic and web department, so.
And we have a really amazing culinary program. So if
There
that's
you
the
go.
direction you want to go, but we are, it seems like most of our people are kind of the Southwest Tech area. So I'm hoping that some of my closer Rock County people will be watching this video at a later date. It sounds like we got a lot of people over in the Southwest Tech area. So that's great. Is there anything that we said that is, was shocking or confusing to you, or is, like, oh, wow, I didn't realize that was going to happen?
I thought it was very good as a teacher to listen to you guys today. Something that we've been talking about and most of these kids have probably heard before, the self-advocacy part of it, and making sure if we're going to college, getting our accommodations to the right, or the IP to the right people and that whole process. So I thought this was very good and I appreciate what you guys did today.
All right, thank you.
Thanks. And I hope that we came across as we're a pretty friendly bunch and pretty easy to work with. Like I said, we have a lot of students. I'm actually based in our Knox Learning Center, which is our library. And so it's a cool place to hang out. It's where our tutors are, obviously where our library services are. We have a testing center. We have a pantry in there as well. So, students just kind of like to hang out in there because there's a lot of resources when they're working on homework to help them out. But I think no matter what college you go to, you're going to find that the disability services people are a pretty friendly bunch and that they really, really want to help you be successful. And so, make sure you're reaching out sooner rather than later.
Yeah, just like Chris said, the same way, we're called the Student Success Center, and we have the testing center and the learning lab and the pantry and the library and everything. So it's, like Chris said, we have a lot of students that come in every day just to say hi, and we have some students that they sign their paper at the beginning of the semester and then I never see them again. So really we provide whatever we can. And I know, the bigger programs like UW Wisconsin and, in Madison and Whitewater, yeah, they have a ton of disability services people, but the person that students are assigned to, they really, that's what we want to do. Our goal is to make sure that students have the access that they need. And but really, we can only do so much. It's really about the students reaching out to us and letting us know that they need help or what they need. So really important to make those relationships, because once the case manager goes away from high school, students find that it's really hard to make those connections. And a lot of students just want to graduate and say, hey, I'm done. I never have to be the special ed kid again. But you're not really known as that when you're here. Special ed is very different than having accommodations with disability services. So very, very different atmosphere.
And Deb, are you guys doing in-person tours?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so if some of you want to come visit one of our campuses and you haven't already, both of our campuses are doing in-person tours. And now we've even, and I'm sure Deb, because you guys have lifted restrictions a little bit quicker than we have, but we can even do more than one person at a time now, which is exciting for Southwest Tech. So, you can come with your friend now, where before it was only, one student in there and a support person. But now we can have up to 10 people on a tour. So, and Deb, do you want to talk about kind of what you guys are doing?
Yeah, we've actually started. I'm still doing, Zoom meetings with, and I'm still doing, but we've done a lot of in-person tours. We've had our tech exploration days where we've brought up to 10 to 15 students that have shadowed for a day the different programs here. All of our orientation and registration sessions are in person, up to 25 people. So we really loosened our restrictions and we haven't had any cross transfers or any COVID stuff happening here. So we've been really safe. We're making sure everything is social distance. We're still wearing our masks and only a certain number of students are allowed in a room. at a time, you know, and if we reach that maximum, then they kind of get bumped to being online. So most of our classes are still being offered both in person and online. And then for those classes where like you have to come in for like welding or auto or diesel, they're social distanced and the classes are limited to a certain number, or else you sign up for a lap time. So I'm really making sure that students are staying safe, but still given the hands-on experiences that they need in order to do their program. So, all right, well, hopefully you have our information here. If any of the teachers or whatever want a copy of the PowerPoint presentation, I can send it off to you. Just, you know, send me a quick email and let me know. I can send it to you, and that way your students, but you'll also, this will be recorded. So I'm sure Tim or whoever's in charge, or Brian Kenny, will send out a link to this. So this will have the PowerPoint and our information on that as well. So, so yeah. So thank you very much for your time. We really appreciated having the opportunity. And if you have questions for either Chris or I at a later date, just let us know.
Thank you.
Thank you
Alrighty,
so
thanks,
much,
guys.
Deb and Chris. Fantastic job. Thank you so much. And thank you to the Greene County Community on Transition for setting this all up. We hope you guys can all join us next week, Monday, 1 o'clock at the same time, to discover, talking about discovering yourself in your community, presented by Melissa Holland from New Glarus. So hopefully you can come on back next week, 1 o'clock, same Zoom channel, same Zoom space. Thanks a lot.
Alrighty.
Have a great afternoon.
Have a
Thanks,
great week,
Tim.
everybody.
Thanks, everybody.